We've got anyone online? Have we connected?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment.
We're live streaming.
No one's online. We'll start with our opening karakia. Tuia ki te Māori o te whenua, tuia ki te mana o te tangata, tuia ki te pono te aroha, kia piki, kia eki, ki te taumata, hui tā ki e. Apologies from Mayor John. He's at another meeting. For about half an hour he will be here, partway through this workshop. So this is a land...
And apologies from Wahine.
So apologies from Wahine as well. I haven't heard from anyone else, and... Kylie's away, yep, okay, that's fine. Haven't heard from Hope or Sandra or Steve, it's okay. This is a landfill workshop. We are live streaming and recording. Tony, I hand it over to you.
Kia ora tātou. Good morning, Chair and elected members. Good to see you this morning. Thank you for coming in. And look, I've got the three musketeers up here in front of you. I've got Jason on my right and Brent on my left, and they will be able to answer any questions as we go through, because they are the technical experts. And you've heard from us before during the closed workshop that we had on this same topic. And certainly happy to take questions as we go through the presentation. We've got about 6 slides roughly. And really the purpose is to talk about the Broadlands landfill and the Resource Recovery Centre. We're going to provide an overview of the landfill and its operations, the consenting process that we're going through at the moment, so that yourselves as elected members and our community have a clear understanding of how the landfill was managed and factors that will inform its future. And certainly, if you've been on our, and I'm sure you have been avid viewers of our Facebook page and our website, you will see there's quite a bit of content up there now around the landfill, waste minimisation and waste management operations. So there's quite a lot of information there, so I really would encourage you to check that out. We've gone to quite a deep level of detail on how that all comes together and operates. So as I said, we previously came to you in a closed workshop where we talked about the landfill consent process, and the purpose of today is to really just give you a bit of a broader overview of how the Broadlands Road Landfill operates and where we are in the consenting process. No questions so far. Okay, I'll continue. All right, next slide. Okay, I've got to keep taking my glasses off to look up there. Okay, how does the landfill operate? Now, we've had to do a bit of a myth-busting, actually, with the landfill. It's interesting talking to members of the community whereby not everybody was aware that a lot of the bags or the rubbish that goes to some of our transfer stations actually all ends up at Broadlands landfill. So that was interesting to know that. So we've tried to incorporate some of that in our messaging. That's a good question. I think that some of that was that the locations where we have transfer stations, we've got a little hole at the back and we just drop it in there. But look, again, just it's, and that's just part of the comms that we've been doing, is just really to demystify some of the information that's out there. And so all of the waste from the district, and I'm talking about yellow bags, whatever bags people put out with the stickers, they all come up to Broadlands landfill. And we have transfer stations across the district, as I'm sure you are familiar with. We have Turangi, Whareroa, Omori Kuratau, Monkino and Kinloch. So we've got a number of transfer stations across the district, and then that waste that comes all the way up into Broadlands, where it's received and assessed, and we recover and divert materials that we're able to. And you'll know that we've got some plans to actually increase what doesn't end up in the landfill in the future with the upgrade of the transfer station. And happy to take some questions on that. So we recover and divert where we can, and then obviously any residual waste goes into the landfill, and that's where it's we have an obligation as a council to ensure that we manage those waste products. And currently, we've got a Class 1 engineered landfill at Broadlands Road. That gets covered every day. And the purpose of the covering is to obviously reduce any odours or smells or impact from rodents and birds and those kinds of things. And if you've been up there, I know we've offered some site visits, you'll see the tractor unit which is going up there and compacting everything. Now, with any landfill, obviously we've got food waste that go in there, unfortunately, as well as other items that will decompose, and all of those ingredients make up a very horrible, yucky substance called leachate. Now, we've got a pretty modern process up there whereby all the leachate gets collected and then that gets pumped off-site to the wastewater treatment plant. And then stormwater is also managed, because obviously we want to make sure that the environment is looked after and that none of these nasties are getting into any watercourses or streams or onto the whenua. Okay. Happy for you to chip in any time. All right, now I'm going to move on to, so that's a bit around how the landfill operates. Is there any questions on how we currently operate the Broadlands landfill from anybody?
Thank you. How do you manage the stormwater, Tony? I mean, we all struggle with managing stormwater on our properties.
Through you, Chair. Stormwater, clean stormwater, diverted around the site, big drainage channel that diverts water coming off the mountain around the actual footprint of the lined area. Water that rains on top of the landfill, treated as contaminated, percolates through the landfill onto the liner where the underground pipes collect that. That's called leachate. So that any water that comes in contact with waste, contaminated leachate. Anything that we can keep clean and divert around the facility, clean stormwater and soaks to ground on site. Yeah.
So probably, do you mind adding to that where that leachate goes and how it's piped away, just to complete that circle for everyone?
Yeah. So imagine that's the bottom of the landfill and it's sort of on a slope, 3% slope. So anything the landfill builds, anything that trickles down here or flows to one point, goes into a pond. From there, goes to a little pump station, pumped up onto Broadlands Road, and from there it gravity feeds all the way down to the wastewater treatment plant. Goes through the wastewater treatment plant process, and then gets up to Rakanui and River Road, whips around with the sprinkler, and grows lovely yates and ryegrass. I think we're poking out of those farms at the moment. So, yeah.
Through the chair, could I just ask a question? Just curious. Do you know the history of why was that location selected for a landfill? Is it better than it? Was it just happened to be available at the time? Is it geographically good? Do you know why?
Oh, well, I think there was a decision made back in the 70s that it was an appropriate site close to the town centre, and it's just evolved from there. Really, I think we've had landfilling since the 70s, right through to present day. There was an open gully next to what is stage 1. So the old landfill from 1975 to 2000 was unlined. Engineering capacity and capability has increased from that. We're now into a class 1, which is the highest engineered site. And there was just an open gully right next to the existing stage 1 site, which we carried on using.
No, I'm just wondering, let's just say we were looking for a new site.
Yep.
I mean, iwi considerations aside, just for the sake of a landfill, is that the sort of site you'd pick now or nowadays?
Well, the location of the landfill right next to the manga is probably not something that we would decide on.
No. Apart from that, I mean, because I'm assuming that wasn't part of the equation back in 1975. I'm estimating.
So the things that you would consider is locality to the community, because
Yeah.
you've got a transport cost out of the town into everywhere else. Leachate disposal, because leachate will be an extensive cost. And I remember when we first built stage 2, we were trucking, and then we put a pipe in because the cost of trucking leachate out is really expensive. So if you're locating somewhere close to the sewer is really a good outcome for everyone. Down in a gully, out of the wind flow, out of the current catchment, the lake catchment. So if you were to think about putting a landfill anywhere else,
Yeah, right.
first thing you would go is, right, where's the catchment? If we have a problem, will it go into the catchment? Luckily, Broadlands Road underground water flows towards the northwest, towards to the river, not towards the lake. So the things you'd look at, not in the catchment, close from a transport perspective. You would figure out where your power's coming from. All of these overhead costs would go on to developing new.
So on all those
Yeah.
considerations, it's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, but the mountain, not so good, of
Yeah.
course. But apart from that, yeah, okay, no, just piecing it together.
Yeah, just to reiterate some of Brent's points, and thanks for those, Brent. Certainly, you know, our location is a fully engineered landfill. You know, we've come a long way since the 70s in how waste is treated, with a fully impermeable lining, leachate collection. Previously or historically, you know, there are multiple different landfills around the district that were once used, and you simply rubbish in a hole and chuck a match in and away you go, let it burn. That's not how we operate anymore. You know, we've got a resource consent that we have to comply with. So, yeah, lots of progress has been made in that space. Just want to talk about the consent journey that we're currently on, and you will see you receive some of these updates in our performance report as well. So you'll be familiar with the fact that we are applying for a resource consent. So currently, as I've echoed before, the current consent expires in December 2027. We have submitted a consent application that was submitted on the 21st of July. So we are seeking a new consent of up to 30 years. Now, it's up to 30 years, plus there's actually 5 years over that, so it's 35 years in total. And the 5 years tagged on, the end, if you like, is for aftercare, and there's quite a bit that TDC has to do as part of that aftercare plan once the site is ceased operations. And there's approximately around about, if current quantities continue, then there's around about 30 years of capacity at Broadlands Road Landfill. And it's unfortunate that when our consent expires next year, that's about the capacity that we reach in our current stage that we're operating on as well. So I want to be very clear that we are seeking up to 30-year consent to continue operating at that location. And just want to acknowledge, a bit like Councillor Campbell acknowledged as well, that we know that the current location is culturally significant place with the Maunga and where the landfill is, and we know that there's a lot of opposition around continuing operations at that location, which we've heard and we understand and acknowledge that. So that application is now in a process. That process we don't have anything to do with to a degree, because it's a Waikato Regional Council's process. So they will start going through what they need to do, and my next slide will show you what the timeline looks like. It's just really to give you an overview. I'm not expecting you to analyse it. Well, you could analyse it. Well, I mean, you won't be able to see it that clearly, but certainly, you know, this is where it will go into. Any consent process will be around notifications, submissions, hearings, and then decisions. And you know, we're looking for a decision obviously as soon as we can, but likelihood is it will be around about middle of next year. They've got a series of steps and gateways they have to go through. And we as TDC are able to make amendments to the consent whilst it's been lodged with Regional Council. So we can make updates, we can make changes as we progress on that journey. Any questions? I've seen who is ready for one.
Yeah, what are the sort of things that you would change with the consent
While
it's being lodged?
Yep, there might be we might get some feedback around some of the draft consent conditions that are in there. We might get some feedback on some of the submissions that we might receive. So therefore, we could look at changing some of those potentially. Also, part of that consent is we've got cultural impact assessments that we've received. So there might be some changes around some of those. I'm just going to look to my right and my left around anything that these gentlemen want to add. Yep. Okay.
Tony, do the submissions come to us or to WRC?
They all go through WRC.
Right, yeah.
So in terms of the I don't know if I'm jumping it. Have you got many more slides, or was it? I'm just jumping into the question anyway. I mean, culturally significant location. Yeah, it's a tip. And there are those who oppose it. They would rather it's not there at all, gone, kaput. Are there any middle ground solutions, mitigatory solutions that could be offered? I'm sort of mildly thinking of the Turangi halfway option of whatever those extending the swamplands things. I mean, that's kind of a half. Is there any halfway solutions, mitigating things that could you think that would allow the landfill to proceed, and although the grumbling might continue, would go some way to addressing the cultural concerns?
I'll try and answer that one, and there's quite a lot in that, Councillor Campbell. And I will touch on some of that in another slide, which is where we talk about the content of the consent application and some of the work that we do before we submit it, and then as we carry on. But certainly, I will elaborate a little bit further and come to that. But look, we've got some of the conversations. We're working with basically affected parties and landowners in the proximity of the landfill. We're going through an RMA process. So we have been having huis with Hapu and the land trusts, where we're talking about the impact of the landfill and what future solutions could look like. So we are having some of those conversations at this moment. We're not negotiating anything at this stage, but certainly exploring what the duration of a landfill consent could look like. And we definitely recognise and acknowledge how the ongoing operations is offensive to Hapu. So I guess what I'm saying in a way is we've applied for up to 30 years, and we're working through those, going through the RMA process with affected parties and landowners.
So if I can jump in, it's actually a really good question, Councillor Campbell, because that's the nub of some of the conversation we've been having. So how do you deal with a range of concerns and a range of issues with competing interests in the community? So it's actually, I suspect with one of your slides further on, we'll unpack that a little bit more. Yeah, but no, good question. Thank you.
So this slide is just really to give you a timeline on a page. We've got quite a bit to go through, and obviously we don't know what the outcome is necessarily going to be. We don't. We know that Waikato Regional Council are entering into their process. We will share all these on Diligent as well, post a workshop, so you have got that to look at a bit easier. And I appreciate that that's not the easiest slide to read, but really the purpose behind it is just to give you an indication that we've got the consent process. We'll no doubt be having further workshops as we continue through the consenting process, and then there's the overall timeline, and we know that there's going to be hearings and deliberations as the Regional Council process the consent application. So there's actually a significant amount of work that goes up front, obviously, as I'm sure you can appreciate with any consent, and particularly one for a new landfill. And I mean, how many councils are applying for landfills at the moment, Brent?
None at all. Sorry. Dunedin is in a process for a landfill, and I think the number that they're talking about is 98 million for their landfill for a new site currently. Yeah, it's the only one I know of at the moment.
And if you recall a previous conversation we had, we did explain some of the options, the other options that were looked at. Obviously, first option was to look at the viability of applying for a consent. We looked at an alternative landfill location, and then obviously looked at the option of trucking out waste. And the viable option at this moment in time was to seek a new consent. And when we say seek a new consent, I'm just thinking as I'm talking, with the way the landfill operations are taking place, it's still within the same footprint with the extension of the current stage. Currently, we excavate material from there and use that as cover, which I already touched on why we do that, and that's the area that will become the extension to the current stage.
Can I just add on? Part of that process you see up there, and I'm not sure if it's actually identified there, but is working with other regional councils within our region, about looking at the alternative disposal sites coming up. We've started that process. It'll take a little time to mature. Obviously, with the Head Start program coming at us, the negotiations over an alternative site might become easier with less people in the room potentially, but that work has started. We realise currently that there's only one commercial viable landfill in the region, which is Hampton Downs. They currently have a monopoly for disposal. The other landfill that was operating, which was Turangi-Tongariro, which is by Thames, is about to close. They've lost their consent. So we're in a situation where the region has a monopoly disposal if we don't operate ours. So we will be in a situation where someone can dictate price. So we've realised that as a working group through regional councils on thinking about waste, and one of our priorities is what do we do about a regional waste solution. So that work is starting, but it's got a little way to go. Yeah, thank you.
Brent, through the chair. So why did Thames lose their consent? Because of what reason?
Okay. Previous owners had made a side deal with local hapu in that area that they wouldn't extend the area. That was at a previous owner, which was HG Leach, had made that, and then it was taken over and owned by Waste Management New Zealand Limited, and they were looking to extend that consent. In that process, the regional council declined the consent because of that agreement that had been made. So it really just says to stand that if you make an agreement, councils make an agreement, or landowners or landfill operators, that they have to honour that outcome. So that's sort of why that landfill's closed. Yeah.
But that landfill is looking to extend into a greenfield space, so not disturb like ours.
Councillor Campbell, you have a question?
Oh yeah, no, Richard Hoadley, the famed Richard Hoadley, has been submitting stuff. I don't know if you got through to this. He's one of Taupo residents. I mean, we went to the extent. This is something he's been taken interest in, obviously, and he sent us through a quote for an incinerator, which will handle apparently 30,000 tonnes a year, and we're talking about $2 million. This is manufactured in the UK, and I suppose that's plus shipping. Have we seriously considered this option? Maybe not this particular option I've got right here, but it's widely used overseas. So how are we going?
Yep, through the chair. I mean, certainly moving forward, we need to look at options. Like I said, we've got limited capacity at the current site, and any new option would take anything between 12 and 15 years to get off the ground. And we've got some information that outlines when you look at whether it be a new initiative, a new technology, or whether it be a new landfill location, for example, there's a certain amount of time that it needs to get that off the ground. Now, that's not some work that we've done yet, but we recognise that there's an element of work that needs to be done there to look forward to the future, as well as linking in, as Brent just talked about, the regional waste strategy. So those things, not denying there may well be some good opportunities there, but we're not in a position at this moment in time. Our focus is on the consent, but then working with the community partners and stakeholders on what future solutions might look like.
Can I add to that?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, this is a little bit off piece, but the amount of snake oil salesmen that have come across my desk over the last 30 years promising environmental solutions, I've lost count of them, Councillor. At $2 million for a waste energy plant, I'm sorry, that's not realistic. It certainly isn't. I think previous in this room we've talked about waste energy plants over 100 million, and it'd be a disservice for us to consider something at $2 million. that would provide that. No one's proved that technology at that level, and I discount that straight away, unfortunately.
If it helps, I've looked at the same email and I've been on their website, and the volumes, it just doesn't stack up. But I appreciate, and I've been in contact with that member of the public and others over the entire period that we've been running this process. And without taking away from the team, there is limited capacity in terms of the work stream we can do. We can either focus on alternative disposal methods that may or may not eventuate and kiss goodbye to the consenting process, because there isn't time to do both simultaneously, and that's going to come at significant cost to ratepayers. Or we can pursue this process, which gives, and assuming, and that's a big assumption, we get a consent, and that is not guaranteed, that then gives us breathing space not to do what happened 30 years ago, and that's forget about it and think we've got 30 years of breathing space, don't need to worry about that. The intent, sorry if I'm sounding predetermined here, but is to, assuming we get this across the line, is to then switch into, right, what do we do next, proactively. And pyrolysis, which is what you're talking about, is another option. I can tell you that there was a large study done by the Bay of Plenty Regional Council on this. Happy to forward it to you and have a read. It's a lengthy volume, but it basically, the executive summary says it is not currently an economically or environmentally viable option, and that was when that was written. And I'd note that Taupō District Council have failed to get theirs across the line in Tawamutu just recently through their resource consenting. Personal opinion, it's still a live issue and needs to be pursued with everything else, but for now, probably not going to go anywhere. Sorry to be speaking on your behalf, but anyway, Councillor Cameron.
I was just reflecting on last triennium. I seem to recall we had a discussion about a potential gas flare, and I believe we had an allowance in the long-term plan for that as well. Is that correct?
Yep. Well, obviously, gas flare is dependent on getting a consent. So if you've got a consent, then the NES requires a landfill over 1 million tonnes in its lifetime to vent and destroy emissions. So as part of that consent, that will be one of the capital items that we put in, as to a gas flare to deal with the methane coming out.
Sorry, can you explain a gas flare?
Oh, okay.
What?
I'll give you this. No, I'll let Brent do it.
So one of our focuses has been to try and divert organics, and if you go to any of our transfer stations, you'll see a lower fee for organics than there is for general waste. I would love to have seen a food collection program that would have reduced organics going into the land further. But organics is a thing usually that breaks down and makes methane. So it's compacted in the ground, it doesn't get oxygen, so therefore it creates methane. Methane's 21 times worse gas than carbon monoxide, so it's the global warming gas that we're concentrated under the emissions trading scheme. The emissions trading scheme charges us currently just over $2 million for waste disposal. They charge us, I think it's $70 odd depending on the value of credits per tonne that goes in. So it's a focus not only from an environmental perspective for capturing that gas that's made in the landfill to burn it so it doesn't impact the environment, but also it's an opportunity for us to mitigate some of that cost of the emissions trading scheme. So we think that we can achieve a 50% reduction on our cost. So we're paying 2.2 at the moment, maybe we'll get down to $1 million, and we'll have some cost to run the flare, but we're mandated by government to run the flare, and what that'll look like is you've got the landfill, there'll be a whole lot of drilled wells in the site, they'll come to a pipe network, and they'll come to a flare, and we run a flare at the wastewater treatment plant, so it's the same sort of thing. It'll go to a flare, there'll be a valve on there, we'll click the lighter, and it'll burn the methane as it'll be sucked out of the landfill and burnt. Yeah, so it's destroying that gas as well as, so two benefits, environmental and economic. Yeah.
And just to add to Brent's comments there, on on the audits that the team do, we've come roughly, and if I get this wrong, Brent will tell me, approximately 28% of the bags is organic waste. So that's what we found on audits, hence why we, trying to promote alternatives with putting the food waste in a bag by doing some, composting and just doing different things with your food. So that's a real issue for us at the landfill. And again, we are trying to reduce what goes into the landfill so that we're not burying items that could be recirculated into the economy. And Brent and the team have got plans to upgrade the existing recycling area. There'll be a large shed there. We've gained funding from MFE, and that when trucks come in, they will get tipped over. Not the trucks, sorry, but they're good. The contents will get tipped out, and then the contents will get sieved through by a very skilled machine operator, and then we can separate out whether it's glass, whether it's wood, all those products. So then we're not putting it in the landfill. Anything you want to add on that?
I have a question if you finished your slides.
I haven't yet, but I'm happy to take a question. Okay. I've only got 24 to go. No, just kidding. So, look, there's a huge amount of work that takes place for putting consent in, and obviously we don't do all that ourselves. We've been leaning on one of the consultancies, WSP, to assist us. And not only do we look at what the impact and effects of the new stage would be, we do obviously have historical information that we utilise as well. We've got multiple monitoring boards around the site. We've got how we've actually been running the operations with our existing resource consent. Obviously, we report on that regularly to Regional Council. And of course, we've got to look at how we can, what the impact on the environment around would be with a new cell, a new engineered cell, as well as what mitigations would take place. And just to come back to Councillor Campbell's point there, one of the things that we've set up in time, particularly around item 3 up there with affected party engagement, obviously I said we're in an RMA process, and if we were doing some work and we were your neighbour and we were going to be digging some holes, we would be coming to talk to you because you're a neighbour, as well as there being affected parties, i.e. iwi and hapu, and that's based on obviously the cultural significance of where the current landfill is and that operation. So what we've done is we've set up a steering group internally for this consenting process, and a very large part of our work is going out and having hui's. So people around the table who are on the steering group is Deputy Mayor and Councillor Westerman and Councillor Murch. So we have been working alongside another working group, internal working group, on this whole consenting process, and really making sure that we've got all the work streams covered. In fact, we had a hui last night at Waiora House. So we're working with iwi and hapu on working through the consenting process and what that would look like. And obviously they're affected parties. They have an opportunity to put a submission in the same as other groups. So yeah, we're working through that. And if I look at the way we worked with the stage 1, when stage 1 was a landfill, we had an operational agreement with the land trust up there. So that might be something that we are looking to explore what that could look like. I can't go into details yet because I don't have anything further.
Tony, I might have missed it right at the very beginning. Do we own this land?
Sorry?
Do we own the land?
Yep,
TDC.
TDC.
Oh, we do actually own the land.
TDC owns the land.
And how much land do we own up there? Oh, sorry.
That much.
A lot. Heaps or just a little bit? Heaps or just a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, do you know?
I think it's 4 hectares.
Okay.
Sorry, don't quote me on that number.
No, but just
comes to mind,
roughly.
but
5 or 50,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's enough area
Yeah.
to have buffer zones of quite considerable bit of space around the
Right.
landfill without impacting on neighbours.
Right,
And I
right.
think
Yeah.
to earlier Councillor Campbell's question around location,
Yeah.
it is actually located in a large piece of council land away from neighbours. So
Yeah.
the impact, apart from the cultural issue of the location part to the mountain, the actual impact of that site in council is fairly low.
I do remember that very interesting tour that you took us on that time, Brett.
Yeah, just so in terms of that was sort of along the same lines. My question: adverse effects to neighbours if they are complaining. Are they complaining about is it noise? Is it smell? What tangible adverse effects are the neighbours really concerned about?
Well, certainly when I'm just processing your question, Councillor. So adverse effects, we look at what the impact would be with a new cell, and part of our current consent conditions is where we report on things like smell or odours, litter. You know, those are some things that can be nuisance issues. We're working with the land trusts and Hapuniwi from a point of view of where the location of the landfill is.
I think if I could jump in with an RMA hat on, when you say tangible, you need to be careful of that, because the RMA talks about effects, and it could be environmental, it could be noise, it could be vibration, it could be smell, it could be light, it could be reverse sensitivity, and a whole range of different things. It can also be environmental, it can be around preserving wildlife that may or may not be in an area, and it's also cultural. So when you say tangible, that's a pretty broad range of effects that need to be considered. I'm not sure council is really in a position to speak on behalf of those who may or may not be affected parties. That would be for them to say.
No, it was just a general question. I sort of had assumed we've had some feedback from neighbours and affected parties by now, haven't we? I mean, we have had feedback. So, I mean, as a general question, noise is a common theme. Excessive noise, excessive light, excessive smell is a common theme. Just a general question, really.
Yep. Thanks, through the Chair. I mean, certainly on the conversations we've had with Regional Council, and certainly over the years that Brent's been running this activity, very limited complaints around the items that you've just indicated, and that's again a positive with us with any new application. Would that be correct?
Correct.
Okay, so this is the last slide, Nicola. So look, I guess really, we didn't have a massive volume of slides today. It was really to give you an update on where we are. Firstly, foremost, how the landfill operates, and that the team are doing a very good job there of operating that landfill. We are working hard to minimise what goes into the hole in the ground. We've got plans there with the transfer station upgrade. We're working through a consent process so that we can continue utilising the Broadlands Road Landfill, and recognise that that's a journey that we're going to be going on for at least the next 12 months. But we think we're operating a very effective landfill operation up there at this moment in time. And I would again encourage you to have a look on our website, on our Facebook page. There's lots of information there on how we operate waste management across the whole district. We've got some really great collateral that's there, and certainly if there's any questions that you get from your communities, more than happy to come along and spend some time with them. Happy to take some further questions.
Oh,
Councillor
go for it.
Delator, you go for your life.
I know, now there's all these expectations. I just wanted to make sure you weren't going to cover my question, really. So in my mind, and in summary, there's sort of three things to be looking at. One's the current location, and there's a submission application through to Waikato Regional Council, which is largely with them now, and apart from community consultation, largely with them. Two, there's a long-term plan, which is, we know at best we've only got 30 years.
Yep.
But the part that I'm a bit concerned about, or I'd like to see some more work on, or need more clarity, is if our submitted application doesn't get accepted, that next step, and I've heard someone ask and a little bit of pushback around, well, we haven't got capacity to be working on that, and I might have misheard that as well as this current application, but in my mind, that's, I would like to see a timeline around our best option on the 21st of July, where's our rubbish going, and we're making a decision around what that looks like as a best alternative, because I would hate to get to December and then be looking at it. So I just wanted to clarify that that's not actually the case, and I needn't worry.
So that was my comment around capacity, and it's exploring other alternatives. The fallback position, I'll leave them to give you the bad news, but there is correct.
Yep, through the chair. I mean, that is it. Hence why, we're watching it very closely. And as we move through the long-term plan process, and if you recall when we had the closed workshop, Nick explained that, hey, we're going to be coming back, and as we start putting numbers into what the LTP will look like, we're going to, as we get closer, we need to look at, okay, right, are there some costs that need to be ready for that possible eventuality?
I guess if it helps, my comment was predicated on comments that Tony made earlier. The timeline for seeking an alternative to a extension to our consent is much longer than the time we've got left before the consent expires. And if we were to explore that, we would fall back to our default position, which would be trucking it out, which comes at a cost.
Which is our own.
Correct, yeah. So,
Sorry.
I was just saying, but we also need to be ready to go, and that's not going to happen overnight, like the trucking up process. So preparation for that eventuality is underway and budgeted for.
not overnight, but that has happened in a community not too far north from here, almost overnight, because their landfill closed unexpectedly and suddenly. Yeah.
And some of through the chair, some of that questions you asked, we've got some FAQs we're working on, which we'll be putting up, and it does touch on those exact questions. But yeah, we are watching it closely.
Councillor Foreman and Councillor Greenslade.
Just wondering what the consent conditions might look like, or if we know what the previous conditions were and how we kind of went with meeting them, I guess.
So like the difference, what's the difference between the old ones? How did we perform, and any differences with any new proposed ones?
Yeah, like, do we know what those conditions, or do we get to write some of those? What?
So the existing landfill's got a set of conditions, and they're based around litter and odour and ground contamination. All of those things you can think about from an environmental perspective of operating no leachate seeps and monitoring programs that need to adhere to specific contaminant levels, and all of those things. Those will apply again. We're probably expecting them to be more rigorous again. There'll be conditions around stormwater disposal and making sure that the material's clean. There'll be conditions around contaminant levels and what they look like and how they're monitored. There'll be odour conditions, there'll be litter conditions, there'll be vermin conditions, bird conditions. So everything you could possibly think about how gas emission requirements. So anything that happens with the landfill, it's monitored, and to make sure we'll have a requirement to have a peer reviewer. So every year I bring in an independent consultant that comes in and reviews everything that we do and gives us advice. That report has to go to the regional council. So there's reporting requirements.
So we've never had issues with meeting any conditions previously?
We're squeaky clean. We're 100% compliant. We've been running a nice tight ship up there, and it's a fully engineered site. So from an environmental perspective, we're able to provide that tick, yes.
This is probably far-fetched, but is there or has there ever been any thought to privatising this, in that somebody's decided that they no longer wish to be a farmer and they would like to take over this sort of responsibility?
I don't know if that's happened historically, but certainly when we start looking at future solutions, I think there's anything and everything that's going to be on the table. And look, and we as council are obviously being challenged to what our core businesses are as well, and that will have an influence. So I think that those are things that we may well be looking at in the future.
Can I just add to that? The reason why we're able to promote a landfill going forward, because it's run at a cost-effective cost to our community. Now, if it was a massive cost and it was way more expensive than other facilities, then straight away you'd go trucking. And I think we've still got that ability in the future if another solution appears at a rate that's cheaper than what we can provide to disposal, then we would pivot into that space. So I think we have to keep an eye on what the market provides, potentially waste energy in the future. Certainly won't be tomorrow, but an alternative landfill disposal within our region, a mega landfill run by councils. If those things appear, then we will keep evaluating that as we go. And if a commercial operator considers that they can capture the market and provide disposal, yeah. But at the moment there isn't that option. And the cheapest alternative is to carry on running this landfill for our community at the rate that we can provide it at.
And also to like a combination of the both, you know, a combination of trucking out and using our own services. Is that sort of something that you ever look at as well too?
Well, so part of the development of the transfer station is looking at diverting material from our landfill to reuse. So from a commercial market perspective, that is working with those commercial partners to achieve disposal options for divertible material. So we're intrinsically linked with the market, and the market will provide those opportunities wherever they are. And I suppose it's council's job to try and facilitate those outcomes.
And this is just one further operational question actually. People always ask me what happens to the bottles and what happens to the paper, and I'm like, I don't know.
Actually, I've just been watching Wasted with Kate, who's provides nappy and other types of education programs. She does that for us in Taupo. She's just put something online in regards to paper. And so you can see that a lot of that actually goes over to Hawk Packaging, is made into apple trays. And so that whole process of collection paper on the curbside, you can see the process. So on the internet, Wasted with Kate, there's a number of videos that come through. Glass goes to OI up in Auckland, where it just goes back into the glass manufacturing process. What we've seen over the last 2 years, if not longer, glass volumes are starting to go down. People are drinking less out of glass, more out of cans. Yeah.
Perhaps you might have seen on the news last week the company in northern Waikato who were turning plastic, including soft plastics, into fence posts. Sadly suffered an arson attack, so they're kind of on their knees at the moment. It's a news item, so you know there's lots of alternatives out there. Councillor Campbell.
Oh yeah, well, I'll just point out that I think our landfill might be filling up quicker than before because after the Rotorua one closed. But I've been aware that our green waste fees are a fraction of what Rotorua charges actually. So if that word gets out, we'll be getting more of that. But look. No, but
don't let word out there.
I'll just point out something else for this is my understanding of public interest, because I think this is the first open workshop we've had on this topic, is it not? We've had a couple of closed ones. Is that right?
Yeah, through the chair, we did discuss some of these items through the LTP.
No, I was just going to point out, I mean, look, what my understanding is that for this consent application, we are quite late in the piece, and if we do end up, I mean, I'm not saying it's too late, but if we do end up trucking it out to Hampton Downs and stuff, I think the hindsight view will be that we should have started this consent application years ago. But I'm not saying that is going to happen, but that could be a hindsight view. But it's just the concrete. We had that problem with the concrete last year. There's no more of that. We're not accepting concrete. That's right.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions? Final comments? Oh,
I'm just going to do a plug.
Online, Councillor Mananui.
Hey, morning team. Thanks, Tony, Brett, Jason, I think, there. I think one of the questions that's going to come up is certainly with regards if we land with trucking, whether it's a temporary or long term, would be around sort of environment. So do we have a comparison, not just of cost, but sort of fuel and emissions, if that were to be, I was going to say backstop, not a good word at the moment, if that was the alternate. I think just sort of what you hear in the community, even with some of our whānau around the environment in town, I think it'd be really cool to be able to offer what that piece looks like if we were to truck, was my question.
Yep, through the chair. Yeah, thanks, Steve. We've got some information, which is, I'm going to call it an options analysis, which we're looking to just refine and make sure it is accurate. Not that it isn't, we just got a peer review across it, and we are looking to put that up along with all of our other content. And certainly a consideration has been that that is the worst case scenario doing that, and we know that there's also concerns around any rubbish that goes into a different arohi also. So very aware of that, and of course the impact on taking it out of town. It's 200 kilometres to Hampton Downs, so yeah, very aware of that. We have done some number crunching on what those costs might look like. Very aware that the time frames involved. Very aware of the LTP, because it would be an OPEX cost, as well as some revenue.
Yeah, cool. No, I just thought that emissions type piece would be important too, for the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Any other questions, team? All right. We'll draw this workshop to a close. We have another workshop in half an hour or so. So we'll finish this one here. Thanks everyone for attending.